Hello, this is the second video dealing with the question of whether or not scriptures, the Old Testament for the Christians or the Hebrew Bible, um, supports the Zionist vision of the Israeli government and of evangelical Christians who support them too. And I concluded the first video by saying that the vision for the people of Israel all along was for peaceful coexistence with their neighbors who occupied the same territory. So this brings me to this vexed question of how to interpret the conquest of Canaan under the leadership of Joshua, a conquest that involved a lot of violence and the suppression of native occupants. Indeed, you could call it ethnic cleansing. What is more, in Deuteronomy 7, God seems to command genocide. When the Lord your God hands these nations over to you and you conquer them, you must completely destroy them, it says. Make no treaties with them and show them no mercy. Yet in another passage of Scripture dealing with how they should live, once they had settled in the promised land, God insists that they should treat them aliens and strangers, that's referring to the original inhabitants of the land, as their neighbors. However, Jewish archaeologists Israel Finkelstein and Neil Silberman have concluded that there is no archaeological evidence to suggest that the Israelites had invaded and conquered Canaan after the Exodus. You can find this in the Bible Unearthed, which is their book. They suggest instead that most of them had in fact always been there. The Israelites were simply Canaanites who developed into a different culture. Now, in addition, biblical scholar Margaret Barker has shown that the books of Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, the two books of Samuel, and the two books of Kings were all products of the Deuteronomic school of priests who had rewritten the history of Israel and Judah at the time of King Josiah in 621 BCE. And they did that to support their much more nationalistic and exclusive Jewish faith. So we have to understand that the sacred writings we call scripture record an evolutionary development of faith in which different perspectives were held in tension. The result is a conversation rather than fixed law. So when we hear scripture read, we should be discerning what the Spirit is saying to us through the text in our current situation. And that conversation is continued in the New Testament, where we find Jesus reinterpreting the whole question of his people's relationship with the land, which I will deal with in